Hi, I'm going to make a little drawing of this teddy bear, and I would like to invite you to draw along with me. So on the right side of the screen you can see the source photograph. On the left side I'm going to draw this little cute bear. So let's get the main shapes on the paper. So a teddy bear has sort of geometrical forms, but because it's all materials like I don't know how you call that stuff, but it's a stuffed puppet. So there's a sort of underlying geometry, I would almost say, but I use very sketchy lines, so I don't draw this in one go, but every line that I put on the paper, I put on the paper 3 times or so, as you can see. So I first started with the main shape of the head of this bear, this cuddly bear, and here's the ear on the left and the ear on the right. And if you would like to skip this part, you can also trace it. I mean, you can take the source photograph and trace this bear, but for now I just draw it. I have to correct this, so I'm not doing it right in one go either. Here is an eye. The eyes are very regular in shape. They are round. And he has a cute smile. And I save shading for later. Let's just draw the outlines of this bear and just push pause and try to catch up every now and then. If I go too quickly to follow, just pause the video and you can draw along and catch up with me, because maybe I'm going a little bit fast, but you can just pause the video. So I think we have its head more or less, and now I'm looking for certain shadows of the stuff that its face is made of. And let's see, I'm looking at this diagonal. Because I do have this photograph, so when I do this, I can determine where his, should I say, hands should be, paw, how do you call it in English? And here's the other one. I can look at this diagonal, and then I can draw this. And its feet, to be honest, much to my surprise, this drawing fits on this paper, because I thought I start with the head and I'm not sure if the whole bear will fit on the paper. So I'm looking at where I should draw this. It's about here at the right side of its nose. So here I can add this. Then its other foot. And we have in general the main drawing of the teddy bear. So this is the bear, something in the background. And you see that I always use these sketchy lines to determine where something should be. But this is the first phase, so to speak. Yeah, so I would say just take all your time to draw this. Go back in the video if you need some more, some more guidance. If you need to rewatch certain areas, but just take your time to draw this properly. And now I will go over to the next stage, and that is I'm going to start to add shadows and dark areas. So now I'm going to start to add shadows and dark areas, and I'm looking at its eyes, the shape of the eyes. So there's this shape of there's a reflection actually in the black, should I say, beady eyes. English is not my native language, so sometimes I'm looking for words. And I'm using an HB pencil on color copy paper. So I try to leave the reflection of the lighter things in the eyes white for now, and I'm looking at those reflections, and there are some areas that are lighter and darker. So this area here is lightest and everything else is a little bit darker than that. So I add a little hatching there. So our bear has its expression now, and this area is darkest, I think, so I put accentuations in the eyes, but it has a nice expression. And now I want to do the nose, and now first, except for this part here, I make the nose a little bit darker in general. And now I want to add some shadow, and I also add a little texture, so my way of hatching is also influenced by the kind of material that the nose is made of, the kind of structure that you see in the nose. So on the one hand I want to make the nose darker, and I also want to make the nose mimic something, or is that the right word? Have something of the texture of what I see in the picture. So there we have the nose, and we can return later, but I think it's quite finished already. And now I want to add some accentuations to the mouth. make it more expressive. He has a nice expression. So here we have the mouth a little bit accentuated here and there. And I want to do this area, and I want to make it a little bit darker here on the left side. So here is the lighter side, and I just very lightly add hatchings. And here in the corner of the mouth it gets a little bit darker. And I just look at the source photograph to make it darker here and there. And sometimes I do crosshatch, because all the hatchings in the same directions, I don't really like that, not always. Sometimes it can work. Some old masters, Raphael or Leonardo, did that and it looks beautiful too, but in general I like to have those directions in several directions, let's say. Let's put it that way. That's an ugly sentence, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm just looking very subtly for areas where I can make it a little bit darker. And if you have to catch up, just pause the video or go back a little bit to watch it again. And now I've started, I almost started without saying it, but I'm going to do the head now. So when I look at this source photograph, put these away. Whoops. Do not damage the source photograph. But if I look at the source photograph, there are all these areas here and here which get a little darker, and texture is also important because you have all these hairs going all kinds of directions. So on the one hand one has to get it darker, and on the other hand there also has to be lines to indicate the directions of the hairs of which this cute bear is made. And I just add accentuations, but there are also areas which are more general. So when I look at this, this is more general. So I can add a shadow here and here, but accentuation like here and here and here also. That's more, more sort of accentuation. So you have larger parts which are sort of shadowy, or they have to be darker in general, what I'm doing now. But there are also accentuations that you have to placed there. And on the right side, now this is a more general hatching, shadowy part. And this here, that's more of an accentuation. That's quite dark. So certain areas are formed in such a way by the hairs that light doesn't really come there. Just like the holes in your nose, for example, when you look at the portrait, light cannot really come there, so they appear very dark. And this area, or this, they seem very dark. And it's just how those hairs are shaped, how they are positioned, and how the light enters that area. So now I just want to draw the more general areas that are darker. So you have these light areas which I have to keep light, and especially here more to the middle they get a little darker. So here you have lighter areas, and some areas here are quite light too. So I have to be careful not to make everything darker. And I'm just using an HB pencil still. I like to start and finish drawings with one pencil. Nothing wrong with another approach, but just a sort of habit or preference that I have. And let's go to the darker areas, because here it gets really dark, and here too, compared to what you see here. So let's just make some darker areas with pencil. And my hatchings are all in a similar direction now, mostly, but I can add other hatchings later, as I'm doing now, to fill up those white spaces better. So now I'm using, in a way, a broad brush, but as I'm drawing, but I want to make certain areas really darker. And just to be quick, I just use the same direction, and I can go over that later on. And again, you can use just, you can draw this freehand, but you can also trace the photograph. I will add some line art with this post, so you can easily trace it. Just print it out on a piece of tin paper, printer paper, and add graphite on the back side of it, and with a ballpoint you can trace the lines, and then you have the image, outlined image on your paper, and you can use hatchings to use light and dark. Because maybe you really want to practice hatchings and not so much drawing the outlines, well, then you can do that. So here's an accentuation here, but it's all very dark in certain areas. So I'm looking at where the hairs move a little bit or have certain shape. So this area here is quite dark. So let's work a little bit to get that darker. And I just proceed with actually its body, because that's the main part. So I'm just working on adding hatchings to make the main body of this bear darker. And now, because I want to have some dark accentuations, I press quite fiercely, quite hard on the pencil to make things a bit darker here and there. And I'm adding accentuations. So some hatchings like these are more general, and sometimes I really want to accentuate a certain area or make it really darker. So this area here needs to be quite dark. So let's just add some pressure to the pencil. And it's coming along nicely, actually. So just click the pause button if you need to catch up. Take all the time that you need. And you can also, if you want, draw only the head of the bear. I mean, that's a good practice too. If you don't want to draw the whole bear now, just take part of it. Now I'm working again on this part of the bear's face.